Hey Trinity students, Christina Albrecht here, coming at you with our week 2 video for our Love-Hate series. This week we read part of Galatians 6 and talked about what it would look like if love was our filter. With love being our filter, we talk to people differently, we respond differently, we treat people differently, and we all want to be known as a loving person. I think we all want to be remembered as that. So watch this video. If you want to continue the conversation, you can text your small group leader, or if you don't have their contact info, just drop a comment below and we will get in contact with you. Love you guys. Hope you're having a great week. Bye.
So who was on, I love this because you're going to get super quiet and awkward. Who was here last week and who wants to share what we talked about last week? Dun, dun, dun. Silence.
No, it's fine. Daniel knows. No, it's fine.
Daniel, what did we talk about?
I forget.
No, you don't.
No, it was about like gossiping and stuff like that.
You did it.
Yeah.
See, that wasn't hard. The scripture we read was we read some of Paul's letters, right? So we're gonna do that again today. And we're still in our love-hate series, so we're talking kind of similar to last week, except it's not going to be quite as much about gossip. What is probably the most awkward thing that someone has told you? It doesn't have to be ever, just recently. What's an awkward thing that someone's told you recently? For me, it was that, I'm trying to think of what it was. Oh, I had the paint sprayer. I was spray painting my deck the other day, and I had completely sprayed like the entire part of my hair. This isn't like the most awkward, it's just a recent awkward thing. And my neighbor had to point out to me that like the entire end of my ponytail was white. A little uncomfortable. But I'm grateful he did, because then I was able to wipe it out before it dried. But so what about you? You guys do anything like that lately? Yeah. I feel like the fields have some good examples.
What?
I said I feel like the fields would have some good embarrassing examples. Nothing?
I don't know.
I've got one. One of my good friends, so she's been working, everyone is working from Zoom now. And she told her kids, like, hey, I'm going to be on a call. And so she was on a Zoom call like this, and then her daughter just like walks in and starts like yelling about her sister and complaining, and she's this and that, and just like starts going on in the middle of like this full-on meeting. She's like, all right, I'm leaving now. So she's just like, yeah, thank heavens she didn't walk in,
Dang.
naked or something really inappropriate. But she's like, yeah. So it's just embarrassing. She had that moment of like, oh my goodness.
Right? Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing. What is the most embarrassing thing or most uncomfortable thing that you have had to tell someone? Do you have any of those? Imagine it wasn't a comfortable moment for my neighbor to tell me that my hair was white. You've never had to tell someone something awkward? Mm-mm.
Oh, I have one.
Okay.
My freshman year at Butler, the other freshmen and I were like having a meeting, to like lead the weekly meeting for the organization that I'm in, the Christian group that I'm in, and whoever was like kind of like leading the meeting or whatever asked me what I wanted to do, but somehow they thought my name was Abraham, so they were like, Abraham, what were you gonna do? And I was like, I had to tell them that was not my name. My name was Alan instead.
Alan.
So that was awkward, but it's okay. We're friends now, so it's all good.
Hey, Mary.
Hi.
We are talking about if you have anything you want to share. We just got started, and we're telling stories of either what was an awkward thing or an embarrassing thing that someone told us, or some awkward or embarrassing thing that we had to tell someone. So Alan's example that he was just talking about was like someone thought his name was Abraham, so he awkwardly had to, in front of everyone, say, that's not my name. So if you have anything like that, feel free to check.
Okay.
Alan's story actually reminded me of the last day of school when I was a teacher. One of my students informed me that I had been pronouncing his name wrong all year.
Yikes.
Oh,
I was like, there's a lot of days you could have corrected that, man.
right. Was it like kind of wrong or way off?
I had like the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Syllable. Good one. Anything else? Nothing else? Okay. So I bet if I start saying things that then maybe you'll agree with it. So maybe it wasn't super awkward. Maybe it was something that overall you were thankful about, but it was still a little embarrassing. Like if you have something in your teeth and people tell you, especially if it's like a green thing or something like not at all close to white, and they tell you that there's something in your teeth, right? That can be kind of embarrassing, but you're thankful for it. Or the example that this gives is if you have ketchup on your forehead, which that might be more embarrassing because I don't know how you'd get ketchup on your forehead, but it happens.
Rub it on there. Just rub it on there.
Just rub it right on there. You're right, Abby. It happens.
Haven't you seen The Lion King, the beginning part where they put the...
That's what I was thinking.
Actually ketchup. Yep. So maybe on the other hand, have you ever felt like you should say something to someone else, but you weren't sure how to say it? So maybe you had to be the person to tell them that there was something in their teeth. Or maybe even a little bit more serious than that, maybe you had to talk to a friend about a relationship that you don't think is good for them, right? That's kind of an awkward conversation. Or maybe you're confronting a friend or a sibling about some of the decisions they've made lately that aren't so great, right? Those may not necessarily be embarrassing for us, but they're still super awkward conversations. And I think sometimes, I don't know about you, but I sometimes just avoid awkward conversations if they don't really have to happen. Like if it's something bad, I'll have the conversation. But if I don't have to, I try to talk myself out of every way possible to not have the conversation. I just start saying things and it turns into word vomit and then I don't know what's going on. And so if I see some of you nodding your head, I feel like you can relate to that feeling. But then for some of you, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you have no problem at all telling people what's going on, or that they have ketchup on their forehead, or that they're being stupid. And so if you're one of those people, that's totally fine too. But both of these personality types or characteristics have something in common, and it's that you need to be careful and mindful about either one of those things, right? Because if you're the person that has no problem with saying how it is, you don't want to come across as rude. And if you're the person like me that just gets kind of flustered, you need to pray about how to handle those conversations, maybe to have enough courage to say those conversations. And I think you can be both of those things at sometimes too. Like if Aaron had ketchup on his forehead, I'd be like, yo, dude, you got ketchup on your forehead. And I'd have no problem saying that. But if it was something else, it might be a little more difficult for me to do that. So we're both going to experience both at some point. Nobody wants to be known as that jerk that just calls everyone out for everything, right? That's not something that we want to be known for. So when it comes to being a friend who looks out for others, how do we make sure that we handle it in the right way? So like I said, last week we talked about our reputation and about what gossip does. We also talked about how we want to be known for loving others. And so if loving others is the goal, then how are we supposed to handle it when someone's doing something dangerous or maybe just stupid? Maybe we should just avoid them. This seems to be the way that we're supposed to behave. But we're all supposed to just be okay with everyone else's choices because it's their life, and who are we to judge? And I think deep down we all know that this isn't always the case, especially when it comes to the people closest to us. So Paul talked about this very thing in a letter to the church in a region called Galatia. It's kind of like where modern day Turkey is now. So Paul gave insight on this topic, and it's in Galatians 6. In verse 1, if you guys want to open it. You don't have to, but if you want to, or you get it on your phone. So it says, "Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person get back onto the right path, and be careful not to fall in the same temptation yourself." So Paul is saying that if the Galatians have any friends who share the same values but slip up and do something harmful or to themselves or to other people, to help them get on the right track. So in other words, he's saying you and I should actually go further than just say something in the conversation. We should help them get to the best place that they can be. So there's a lot that Paul isn't saying here too. He isn't saying that you're responsible for making sure your friends make good choices. He isn't saying that you should put yourself in a position that, sets you up for failure or for you to start making poor choices. And when wisdom in these conversations and situations is a must, that's okay to maybe not necessarily fully go into the conversation, but he doesn't say this, but either it's okay to ask for help, and it's definitely don't feel like you have to handle those things all by yourself. So for starters, that is not what we're saying here. If helping a friend is going to put you at risk, you do not have to feel responsible to deal with it all by yourself. There are adults you can talk to, parents, us, whoever. Yeah, you get the point. So Paul continues in verse 2, and he says, "Share each other's burdens. In this way, obey the law of Christ." So how do we help them get back on track? By carrying each other's burdens, is what he says here. Now, again, that does not mean that you are solely responsible for everyone else's choices. But if any of you are athletes, or maybe you've done like some weight training or something like that, you know that if you do work out, usually you have a spotter, and that spotter's job, if you're weightlifting, is to help you if it gets too heavy for you. It's to help them kind of lighten it, for you to be able to put it down gently so that you don't get hurt and that no one else gets hurt. And so that is kind of what Paul is asking us to be. He's asking us to be the spotter for people. Paul cared deeply about the people of Galatia, which is why he wrote what he did. He knew that the most loving thing to do isn't always the easiest thing to do, but that we owe it to each other to speak up. Because the truth is, we need each other. All of us needs other people. I think if this whole quarantine thing has taught me anything, it is that I need other people around. It is not good when I am just by myself all the time. I start talking to my dog way more than I ever have, which I didn't think was possible. But anyway, in other words, Jesus followers must do more than just speak up and point out what's wrong. We must make ourselves available to be the spotters in the lives of others, to help make it right where things have gone wrong. We don't just point fingers, we share each other's burdens. So again, some of us are like, I'm not afraid to speak up. I don't care what others think. And some of us might have a more difficult time with the speaking up part of it. But if we start with the just being there for someone, that's going to make those conversations a lot easier than just showing up one day and telling them they have ketchup on their forehead. If you're friends with someone and you're with them all the time, then when you tell them stuff like that, or more serious stuff even, it's not going to be as uncomfortable. So what is this supposed to look like? How can you begin to put this into practice? Some of you might be thinking about a certain person that you want to have a conversation with this like. Maybe it's a sibling, maybe it's a friend or a classmate. And so what should you do? If you're going to choose to be known for your love for others, then it comes to what you say and how you help others. And so last week we talked about about others knowing us by our love. And so today, how we're wording that is, let love be your filter. So you already know how a filter works. Maybe it's a Snapchat filter or a TikTok filter. And maybe you might know it as kind of the more well-known version of like a water filter or something like that. So if love is our filter, what does that mean? It means that it'll filter for your involvement. When you aren't sure if you should get involved in a friend situation, ask yourself, what's the most loving thing I can do? Use this question as a filter for your next step. If this provides kind of a check for your motives, maybe that'll kind of help you realize if you're just calling this person out to make yourself look better, or maybe you're saying something to them because you genuinely care and want them to feel better. And then it says, let love be the filter of your words. Ask yourself, how would I want someone to speak to me, or what would I want him or her to say? Right? So just like what we all learn in kindergarten, treat yourselves the way you would want to be treated. That's what this one's saying. Don't speak in people to a way that is going to make them upset if you think it would also make you upset. And then let love be the filter for your actions and your reactions. So not every time is the person going to agree with you. Actually, a lot of the time, they're probably not going to agree with you, especially right away. But if we have friends that are having a hard time keeping their lives headed in the right direction, we want to be careful how we react, especially if maybe we say something and they're like, I totally agree, you're right, I'm going to fix this, and then they do it again. The first thing you're going to want to say is, what the heck, man, I told you not to do that anymore. And that would not be love filtering that reaction. And so we kind of have to think of, before we have those conversations, always pray about it. It might be helpful to last week we talked about gossiping. So not talking about it in a gossiping way, but maybe asking someone for advice, like your parents or a close friend or your small group leader, whoever, but asking them and kind of have someone help you walk through that situation of, this is what's going on, I want to help them, what do I say? And then kind of think of how you would react for either if they agree with you or they disagree with you. That way you're prepared, and no matter what they do, you'll respond in a loving way. And so when we let love be our filter, we end up sharing the burdens with those that we love, right? Because they're not going to think we're saying it because we think we're better than them. They're not going to think we're saying it because we're judging them, right? They're going to know that we genuinely care, and that we want to help them. And also realizing too that it is really difficult for people to change right away. And so kind of making it known that you don't expect a instant reaction to that problem, or you're not looking for a quick fix. Let that person know that you're there with them for the long haul and not just in that moment. I think will also be a really helpful way to deal with those difficult conversations. So imagine how your schools or communities, your house right now, since that's where you're at most of the time, would be different if there were more people filtering their involvement, their words, and action through love. I don't know who you guys follow on social media, if you're on there, or what news stations you watch, or what TV shows you watch, but I can't help but think maybe how how information would be spread if everyone thought that way. I feel like, especially on our news stations and on social media, there'd be a lot less finger pointing if people just spoke with love and thought of love before they typed whatever it was or posted whatever it was. So as you go into small group, I want you guys to think about what a difference it would make. Last week we talked about what a difference it would make if just this group either stopped gossiping or stood up to those who were gossiping. And so for this week, I want you guys to think kind of similarly, but what it would look like if just this little Zoom screen of people let love be their filter before they talked or post or had difficult conversations with what would be different with the world.